Hello, listeners, and welcome back to this new episode. Today, we are going to be talking about networking. And I've called this Networking Made Simple or Networking 101 because I don't want you to overthink it. Networking is an extremely important skill if you're looking to build your career. And so today I want to talk a little bit about what it is, why it's important, the mindset behind networking, who to network with, and how to do it. So this episode is going to be very practical, very straightforward. And as I talk you through these different points, really ask yourself, who are 5 people that you could be networking with? Okay, so that's what I would love for you at the end of the episode is to pick up your phone or pick up the LinkedIn or Messenger and connect with 5 people. So think about who that could be as you are listening to this. Once again, thank you for being here and thank you for following every single week. I appreciate you and your time so much. So firstly, what is networking? Like I said, I want to keep this very, very simple. For me, it is building connections and building relationships. That's my version. I didn't even go to the dictionary this time around. Networking for me in a work environment is simply building a relationship or building a connection with somebody. And why is this important? As you build your career, you can't do it alone. I love that expression. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And networking and building your career, you will go much further if you have built relationships and know how to connect and keep those relationships strong. It's important because when you have a network of people around you, and I'm talking people who are allies and who want to support you, or they could even be neutral, but somebody that inspires you, that could support you, that can teach you something, that can help you navigate a different challenge or a situation that has come up that you've never had to deal with before. So, and it's so much more important for women. Also, I think we're natural connectors and we do have a tendency to go towards people, but I find that in our jobs and in our careers, we like to prove that we are good at what we do by doing the job and doing it well. And we think that if we do our job and do it well, we're going to be noticed. So while I think that is important, and that's a topic for another day, you need relationships also to help build your career. It is a foundation of success. And so a lot of times I hear, I don't know how, I don't want to bother people. So my first key message is it is super, super important. Afterwards, my second point is I really want to talk about the mindset and the thinking behind networking. It absolutely has to come from a place of authenticity. The objective is to get to know another human being. Get to know them as a person, get to know them as a human. Ask them questions about themselves. Ask them about their career. Ask them how they did something, how they built their career path. But when we are networking, it has to come from authentic energy. Expect nothing in return. And that is, I think, if you take one thing away from today's podcast, it is do not expect anything in return as you go into that conversation. It is, for me, a win-win situation. So when you are going to be asking to meet with somebody, it's also good to give back. I think the universe rewards us also when we're freely giving to the universe. So what I mean by that is See it as a win-win situation. Yes, you're going to be contacting someone, you have questions for them, but at the same time, you also have something to offer them. It could be the idea of a book that you've read. It could be a podcast. Maybe it's giving them information or making a recommendation on something. So even though you are there almost in an asking situation, if you go into it thinking it is also a win-win for them, you are expecting nothing from them except to learn, and you're coming from a place of authenticity, then it makes networking, which can seem like a, charged word or negative word sometimes, so much easier. So who do you network with? Inside a company. So if you are working and you're inside a company, I suggest a few different types of people. Get to know people who have your similar job. That always creates some kind of peer-to-peer connection. It could be in a different department, but doing something similar, because that can give you peer support, can also give you some moral support, help talk through maybe questions or similar challenges. Same job, same department. Okay, that's kind of the first inner circle of building your network. I think it's also important to contact people in your company that have nothing to do with your job. So I'll give you a couple of examples. You could contact the head of communications, even though you have nothing to do with sales or marketing. But it's interesting to see what they're doing, how they're working, how they perceive the company, get their opinion on something. It could be IT, it could be operational. Now, very important is also understanding how a company works. So you could reach out to some kind of operational contact. It doesn't really matter, but building those connections will help you long term. I also think it's really important, and this is also in a professional situation, you can find connections anywhere that you go. So let me just give you some examples of, so I'm building a business. So if you're listening to this, you probably know I have a coaching business, and I had some questions about wellness programs and mentorship programs. And so I went to my network. I play golf, and I knew a bunch of people through the golf course. I sort of knew where they worked, but I wasn't 100% sure what they did. I reached out and had a conversation. I made a connection through, I take Pilates. So made a connection with a woman in a Pilates course. We hit it off, and now we have coffee every single week. Maybe you're in a training group. So you're training, or you have an in-person conference, something like that. Perfect opportunity also to meet people and connect at a different point in time and get to know that person one-on-one. Also, a recent example, I have a friend and I knew that her husband is an HR specialist. So I reached out to the husband, and we have never met in person. Do you have a little bit of time? I would love to pick your brain. So don't think that you have to limit yourself to only building connections and a network at work. Yes, it is very important to do it at work because it will help you in your job, but building connections out of work and learning something from those people and seeing how it could apply to you in your job is also just as important. And I just want to tell you a little story so I used to live in Paris. I've moved to southern France, and I'm in a very touristy area. And in the summer, there is, every Thursday evening, there is an event with a ton of food trucks and live music. And on a specific Thursday evening, it's packed. It's packed every single Thursday. And I couldn't find a table. And so I sat down at a table. There were other people sitting there. I asked, can I sit down? I was with my daughter and ended up having a conversation with the two gentlemen there. They were with their kids, really hit it off. And the gentleman says, well, he had just arrived, or he'd been in the area from Paris. He'd been here about 5 years. So it was really interesting for me also to hear about his experience. I had just moved and we found a common point of connection. And then he says, well, Karen, just let's get together for drinks or coffee one day. And we did. And come to find out, his wife is head of the Chamber of Commerce in my area. So I go into also connections and networking with no expectation. I was just really curious about his experience. I've just moved here. I'm looking on just basic things, where to go to the doctor, where to get my hair done, where to get new glasses. And it ends up, he had an amazing connection, which was his wife. So how specifically do you do this? First of all, keep it very, very simple. I love to keep things extremely informal, under 30 minutes. So 25 minutes, 30 minutes max. I assume that everybody is busy and they don't have just an hour, but 30 minutes is a very easy ask and most people will say yes. I love to do it over coffee, in person if possible. If not, virtual coffee also works great. And before I contact somebody, I try to find a common ground or something we have in common that will open up the door. Why am I contacting them? I'll just give you an example of the guy that I play golf with, and he actually works at Amazon. And I'm thinking Amazon has, a big mentor program, or I would love to know more about their HR. And so I contacted him and I said, hey, first of all, we hadn't touched base on golf, so asked about his golf game and said, do you have 30 minutes? I would love to hear your experience and your personal experience with regards to this subject in your company. And so there will be topics that are 100% confidential. And I completely understand that. But most people love to talk about their experience. They love to talk about their job. They love to share. They love to talk about themselves. They want to share. So I find a connection point. I reach out. I keep it very simple. And ahead of time, I prepare 2 or 3 questions. Because I find most people, first of all, there's going to be a natural flow to the conversation. You never know where the conversation is going to go, but I want to look prepared. I don't want to just show up and say, so what are we talking about? I try to have 2 or 3 questions prepared. And a lot of times I send them ahead of time saying, this is what I want to talk about. Just to give you a heads up, if you have 2 minutes to think about it ahead of time, that would be great. And then I go in and I listen. And I love to think about it as the 90-10 rule, meaning I talk 10% of the time. I usually up front. I set the context, why I wanted to contact them, what I would love to hear about, ask a question, and then I let them do the talking. The other reason I love doing this is because I am an introvert. Now, I know a lot of people say that's insane, Karen, I can't imagine you as an introvert, but I am. And so I get my energy from quiet time and being alone. So networking one-on-one is so much easier for me than networking in a huge event. That is another subject for another time. So keep it simple is all I can say. And as a final note, think of networking as building relationships, and relationships take time. It is a long game. When we talk about building your career, it's a long game. And so let me just give you one example of also something that happened recently. So I am, like I said, I'm building my business. I'm recording this in February. Since November, I have reached out to over 100 people in my network and asked for a coffee chat. I have had so many people say yes. It has been amazing. So if any of you that I've had a chat with are listening to this, thank you for your time. It has been so wonderful to reconnect with a lot of people. And I spoke to a woman who I hadn't spoken to in probably 2 or 3 years. She had worked for me. She'd left the company. We'd had coffee in person, but I hadn't spoken to her in probably 3 years, and she wasn't working. I said, "Would you like to connect and catch up? Would love to hear about what you're doing. Curious to know, I saw that you'd left a job recently. Just curious to hear about that and how things are." So, genuine question. I'm coming at it out of genuine curiosity for this person and what she's going through. We had the best conversation, and she ended up putting me in contact with several other people that could possibly help me in my business. Will they? I don't know. Have I met them? Yes. But I go into it curious, open-minded, wanting to get to know the person, understand what she's doing, where she's coming from, how she's building her career. And I'm 100% sure that having that coffee chat with that colleague is going to help me down the road. I do not know how, and it doesn't matter. I don't need to know how. I went into that conversation with no expectation whatsoever, and it will probably pay off one day. And so that's what I'm talking about when it comes to be authentic. And contacts can come from anywhere. It could be somebody that you were with in high school, somebody from college or grad school, somebody you met in a training course or in a mastermind, and your corporate experience. Connections are everywhere. So, in conclusion, it is something that I encourage you to do, be doing all the time. Keep it very, very simple, and I absolutely guarantee that you are going to benefit, the other person is going to benefit, and even if you don't know how, doing that is going to help your career. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll talk soon.